Ladies and gentlemen, prepare to be motivated by your host, Reverend John Wheeler! Now shut up! You shut up! Sit down! Shut up! Shut up!
Well, hello, boys and girls. It's the Reverend John Wheeler podcast. I'm on it, and it's named after me. My friend Meredith is here, too. Earlier today, I was on the phone with my insurance company because I am a grown-up, and those are the things that I deal with now. And I don't just mean, like, medical insurance or whatever. I mean legitimately homeowners insurance. And, we officially we won the lower middle class poor person lottery and got a bunch of hail damage on our well-insured house. That's the biggest thing that's going to happen to me in the next decade.
I was wondering when that was going to happen, when you were going to get your new siding.
Oh yeah, it's been a really long time, and it's because, look, I'm going to be real honest. I think the contractor we have is decent, but they got thrown such a hard curveball at the very beginning because the State Farm, the claims adjuster guy or whoever, what is that called? Is it claims adjuster? Something like that.
Yeah.
That guy came out, and I mean, like, okay, if I was in charge of this guy and he was working at Grubhub, I would have, like, fired him after 3 days. I'd be like, you don't have the communication skills for this. Like, you have to go. And I'm so sorry. Like, I only know one language, but unfortunately, that's the one you need to know to be, like, an insurance adjuster, like, here, like, and talk to... Like, it was such a shit show, and I had both sides calling me, being like, whatever happened with this? And I, like, I tracked down that guy, and I'm like, okay, well, have you been in contact with my, contractors? Like, I lost their phone number. This was after 10 minutes of shuffling around papers on his desk while there was, like, kids screaming in the background. I'm like, okay, like, I understand, but this, please, like, I need this to happen eventually. Like, I pay my insurance like a grown-up, like an idiot, like someone who lived this long who never intended to, but here we are. And then, like, hey, there's, like, giant holes in our siding, and this is why I pay all this money for insurance. Can you talk to the people that are going to put new siding on there, which is your only job? And the answer is apparently no. But a few months later, now I finally got an email thread going with both sides, like they're members of a band I'm about to quit. And be like, so you need to come grab a shingle because some of them need to be repaired, but if they don't make them anymore, which I'm pretty sure they don't because the roof's like 10 years old or something, which, by the way, was like a complete lie we told, I believe, as part of the insurance rate we got. But it doesn't really matter. It's too late now. But they were like, oh, yeah, we got to replace all of it. Same with the siding. And they're like, yeah, if it doesn't match perfectly. I'm like, or no, they said if it doesn't match close enough. I'm like, we are not having our house look like a junkyard car. Like, when I was renting, I didn't care. Now, like, it's like the one side being orange gives it some character. It's like, this is not a Buick from 1993. Like, that, no. I don't live in one of those. And I'm lucky I don't. But, yeah. So that's been a huge nightmare. But anyway, I was on the phone with, like, the 15th different person that works for State Farm that I've talked to randomly. And not from me reaching out to multiple different people. I just mean, like, whenever they call me, it's, like, somebody else. And I'm like, they're like, so what's going on? I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea, like, what part of, like, I bought a house and needed to pay for insurance gave me, like, a goddamn degree in understanding how siding and roofing and insurance things work. Isn't that you people's job? I'm trying to get back into the, like, actual workforce because I figured, at this point I'm almost wasting all the things I learned how to do by freelancing because I could be doing a lot more with them. And I understand that, and that makes sense. And I think that it's time to do that. And I've already talked about that. But at the same time, the amount of shit I have to put on a resume just to convince people I'm good at what I'm good at is ridiculous because apparently all you have to do is be the guy who's pointing out that your house has hail damage and suddenly you're an expert in event coordination and human resources and how devaluation of shingles fucking works. Like, yeah, they're just looking at me like I know. Like, where's my fucking $50,000 a year to understand this stuff? I'm not getting into that.
I was probably paying about 10% attention to what you've been saying. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's too much.
What the fuck does shingles have to do with siding? Like, you're getting your siding done, not
no, there's damage on both.
Oh, okay.
And we're trying to prove, okay, part of this is a bit of a scheme, but, like, it's a good scheme because enough of the shingles are kind of whacked out from the hail that we need to get a whole new roof. Now, a whole new roof on a house is like a whole new transmission on a car. Your insurance company does not want to give you that, even though you've probably paid for one already, even if you've only had your house and or car for a few years. Like, when I spent a good 20 years driving around without car insurance, including part of a time in which I was driving for a living.
Ooh, I did that too.
Yeah. But I was like, this is stupid because I've gone so long without an accident and I've never caused one. But I'm like, with the money I've saved on not paying car insurance forever, if someone hits my car, I'll buy a Rolls Royce. Jesus Christ. Like, and instead they'll be like, I guess we'll get you a new bumper, but it's like a $900 deductible. Like, you know, it's stupid. I hate all of it so much. Anyway. Yeah, no, our siding is dinged up. It looks like a gang of Dennis the Menace child soldiers like executed someone with pellet guns in front of our fucking house. Like, you can see them from the street. Like, and then the shingles like flip up all over the place from hail wanging into them and stuff. And it's like very clear, but they don't want to. They don't want to pay for it, and it's like, I think almost, yeah, I'll accuse them of this. It's like, they know they have a few very, very incompetent people in their employ, and they just use that as part of the game of obfuscation. It's the kind of thing I would do if I was pulling some bullshit where it's like, well, first of all, I'm going to surround myself with idiots, blame everything on them, and then be like, well, they'll tell me when you tell them that there's a problem or whatever, and then never get back to them because they're stupid, and it's reasonable to assume that they never talk to me. They're like, oh yeah, nothing works around here, right? Yeah, it's like fucking Spaceballs, but on purpose. Like, and that's how I would run it, and apparently that's what State Farm does.
When will then be now?
Soon.
Yeah.
But I was bringing that up only literally because, and I've wasted nearly 7 minutes talking about that, but because I was on the phone with them, and then I thought Meredith was trying to like FaceTime me using Instagram's Messenger app, which, by the way, I didn't know was a thing you could do.
I didn't either. I mean, I use the Facebook thing, and that's horrifying.
And it kicked me off of the phone call with some nice lady from Texas who was like, well, what you're going to need to do, sugar, is call. We can come by and pick up the shingle, but we can't pick it off. The contractor has to pick it. And then it just disappeared. And I was like, what is this? Like, and I'm like, I was calling you.
I would never call you.
Well, right. Instagram wasn't even open on my phone. Am I on it a lot because I'm a deranged narcissist? Yes, but I wasn't at the moment. The app wasn't even open. And then apparently, though, my phone, which is haunted, decided to just go, you know what? Why don't we just stop talking to the State Farm representative while we're trying to solve all your problems and FaceTime your friend who's already coming over. Just to see how things are going.
Oh, man.
It's so dumb. Ugh. But,
No, I love that, Ozzy meme, about the FaceTime thing with, Facebook Messenger, and he's like, it's just a thing from the show. I was like, fuck is that?
Well, yeah.
Whatever it is.
Ozzy is kind of my, like, I didn't know it, but he was the ghost of Christmas Future with me because they were all rich. And so they had things like shit in your car that would talk to you, like, way before the rest of us would. Like, I was watching episodes of The Osbournes at Brian and Joel's apartment. Like, that's how long ago it was. And Ozzy had to talk to a robot in his car, which his accent is so garbled and terrible anyway because he's, like, a poor person from Liverpool and who their accents are borderline Cockneys. You could barely understand them. And then also just pour, like, snorting lines of ants out of Motley Crue's ass for, like, 50 fucking years. And he's just like, and it's like, I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. And it's just a string of beeps coming out of Ozzy. You goddamn bloody robot, I'm trying to drive my car. And somehow he's still alive. But you know, at first I was making fun of him, like, the robot doesn't understand Ozzy, and now Ozzy's mad. Well, now I'm Ozzy.
I mean, facts that no one probably gives a shit about. Apparently, they just moved back to London, and I saw a picture of him, and he's just with a fucking cane and just all crumpled over. Like,
he's pretty old, but, you know, he's actually impressively old. Not only all things considered, but also just British people don't fucking die. Like, have you noticed that? Like, the Queen, 100. I know they're all rich, but, like, Winston Churchill lived to be, like, 99 years old, and he was, like, just this fat cigar-smoking
job to do, of course.
Drunk
he be 99.
that, like, fought Hitler and stuff. Like, he should, like, you know how presidents age like crazy, and it's like, dude, he was right next to Germany during World War II, and they were mostly, at that time, concerned with the country Winston Churchill was in charge of. Like, he was literally just like, it'd be like if Hitler was running Wisconsin and I had to deal with that. How well do you think I would age after fucking 10 years? And instead I just eat cigars and brandy for breakfast every morning and weigh like 280 pounds and just live to be 99. And that's Ozzy. Ozzy is just another one of those. I mean, like the Rolling Stones are all alive.
Yeah.
But the Rolling Stones are full of like piss and vinegar. Ozzy's been like a shambling, confused old man for like since 2001. And he's just still around. And it's like, yeah, he has a cane now. Like, that's sad. He's probably 104. He should have died in like 1997. Like, I don't understand like how it's even sad. But they did move to England because they were, you know, LA's gotten to a bit of a point with things. And he's like, I don't want to bloody die. And I mean, I know they live probably like a little out of where things are weird, but also like,
it's not that. I mean, shit might burn down. I mean,
well, there's that. You can die for a lot of reasons in the place all my asshole, dumbass band friends moved to and called me a child for not following them. I'm just like, yeah, have fun out there. You know, everyone that I made fun of for moving there, except for Rob Kleiner, who, by the way, is the only one. You remember Tubbering? Their keyboard player is a friend of mine, and he moved to Los Angeles because Los Angeles asked him to move there and gave him a job.
The town itself.
Yeah. No, the city council of Los Angeles was like, can you come out here and produce the CeeLo Green signal that's going to be on the Twilight soundtrack? And he was like, oh, I guess. And then he moved out there. But everyone else was like, you got to move out there to make it. And it's like, at this point, I don't know how long ago that was. But
I miss Rob.
I visited him, I guess it was a few years ago now, but I still enjoy him. I like that he's still a drunk. That's great. Like, he has this huge, I mean, he lives in Los Angeles and he has like one of those apartments that you can like roller skate around in the living room, and like one of the bedrooms is his like private recording studio. And he just has a full Mad Men bar, and we just sat there drinking old fashions and yelling at the TV. And I was just like, he's like, do you want to go out? And I'm like, not really. Aren't we in LA? What, are we gonna go play pool somewhere that just looks like it's in northern Wisconsin, but it's in LA?
It'll take you like 3 hours to fucking get there.
Oh my god. Well, not in the middle of the night, but yeah.
Well,
but anyway, everyone I know
half.
that moved out there and was like, yeah, I come out to LA, bro, then that's how you make it. They just like answer phones for a company that sells guitars or some shit. Like, wow, you're a musician, kinda. And they live in a house with 7 other dudes that's about the size of this one I live in with my wife that I own. And, you know, I don't hide my schadenfreude, even when my pants fall down. Or that's schnitzel. Yeah, what else? Oh, yeah, speaking of my bitterness and cruelty and whatever, and the sarcasm and stuff I hide behind the humor, and this will lead into what we're eventually going to talk about, I have actually started seeing a therapist. And, by the way, I want to make the record clear that I wasn't doing the man thing where I was, like, embarrassed to talk to a therapist. I mean, I've been saying things that most people would be afraid to tell their significant other or a trained professional therapist, like, either on stage or just into a megaphone into the internet for years. Like, I don't care. You can't embarrass me. Like, if I spill a drink on myself and someone's like, you pissed your pants, and I was like, probably. Like, I don't care. Like, shit doesn't bother me like that. I get mad about some things, but not that Betty Draper, what are the neighbors going to say type of thing. I'm like, well, I'll tell them what they can say, and that's to fucking button their lip. But, yeah, like, stuff doesn't bother me too much, but I do have, you know, anxiety, and I was screaming about on the internet how and I've said it even on the podcast before, I got prescribed SSRIs, which just made me fat. Like, that's all they did. And the insult to injury with the whole SSRI fat thing is entirely that when you look it up online and they're like, can they cause weight gain? And then you look to the answers, it's just like, well, it may cause you to make worse decisions with food. And it's like, bitch, I've been meal prepping and intermittent fasting and eating the same shit I was eating before. And I looked like the Chris Farley's autopsy after a fucking year of being on those things. They're like, okay, but I was like exercising and doing everything the exact same way. And then the other answer was, well, as you get older, you kind of gain weight too. And I'm like, really? Because I'm even older than I was when I was on those, and now I'm less fat. So I don't know how that works, but you can't sell a pill in America. It's like, I mean, it'll make you fat, and it doesn't work as good as Xanax. But come on, guy, just give us $1 billion or $5 a year for these. Xanaxes are in the news. You need a concierge doctor for those. Like, no one will actually... I know those aren't great for you, and you're not supposed to take them every day. But some people can't handle their drugs just because a bunch of little rappers died from taking hundreds of them all the time. I need a concierge doctor. We talked about that. I learned what that was finally.
I don't know what you're talking about.
A concierge doctor. It's when rich people And I was literally talking to Bernard about it when I was over at his house the other day because he was like, I was considering doing this. And it's like, when you're like, how come all these people have Xanax prescriptions? Or you listen to all these comedians like Bert Kreischer, and he's got like a Xanax script. And it's like, you're a big fat alcoholic. Your doctor gave it. It's like, oh, they have one of those like, it's a Michael Jackson doctor. You know, you just kind of hire them. And they're a real doctor and everything. And they're just kind of like, well, I get paid the big bucks to kind of give you what you're asking for and look the other way. I mean, maybe like opiates are probably where they draw the line. But
yeah, I mean, yeah.
And I always make the joke, I know benzos aren't great. But they, didn't make me fat, and they actually, like, made me feel better. Now, therapy is actually probably a better idea for me. And I know I've made this joke over and over, and my new therapist actually laughed at it because we're talking about all this, mental stuff, getting to know him a little bit. And I was like, I feel like SSRIs are so terrible, but, we can't give you Xanax. It's kind of like, well, we can't execute death row inmates with fentanyl. Well, why not? The risk of addiction is too high. It's like, it's that level of logic. And I'm like, yeah, it's kind of, he laughed. And I was like, but yeah, like he recommended a book for me. It was weird though, because I actually I'm real open about stuff. So it's like I had no problem. Basically, oh yeah, right. My point was it didn't take me so long because I'm like, I'm not going to no therapist. That's for Nancy's. No, I wanted to see one, but I needed one that was like in network on my fucking like scumbag scam insurance. And, also I couldn't just have like some kindergarten teacher. It's like, have you ever tried feeling your feelings? Like I don't need cognitive behavioral therapy. I'm not like, I just can't stop buying lottery tickets. I'm like, no, I just need to be able to sleep at night. Like, that's it. Like, and I get, without getting all amped up and weird. But because I was so open and honest with this guy right out of the gate, it was like talking to a psychic that really has psychic powers. He's like, oh, so I'll bet you were kind of like this when you were this age. And you were probably kind of like, I'm like, oh my God. And it's like, I don't know this guy. But it was almost like, am I on a hidden camera show? Jesus, like, that's so... And it's not like a complete mystery, but
it's good you got lucky, like, finding a good person the first time around, because it can be really, really, really challenging to find somebody to click with.
Well, no, and that is part of the reason it took so long, is I didn't want to go through a bunch of people. I kind of just, how about this? No, how about this? No, how about this? No. All right, let's pull the trigger on this one.
Yeah.
Like that, it's kind of like I'm trying to do with, getting an actual, some kind of permanent job somewhere. Is like, I don't want to like work my way up. I want to manipulate my resume just so it's kind of like I've actually been doing what they hired me for 20 years and I get paid like that. Like, and I deserve that because I am that good at stuff. But you know what I mean? If I didn't very meticulously do what I'm doing, I'd have to start like some kind of joker that just goofed off in bands for the last 20 years. But, learned a little something along the way. And I want to make that stuff count. But I like therapy so far. Like, it's like everybody who's like, and I mean, I understand. I imagine if you had like a bad experience with some bozo, like right off the bat, you'd be like, this sucks. Like, why am I talking to this person, paying him all this money?
It's uncomfortable.
Using up my like, and you know what? You know that if I had a therapist that I thought was like an idiot, the way I would do the thing to them, kind of. Like, I would just steer it around in circles and make stuff up and, like, confide, like, felonies in them and just watch them sweat. Like, just ones that I make up. You're like, I did kill someone once and no one knew. Well, I mean, just if I didn't like them. I'd be like, I really want to see how long it takes for them to call the cops or something. And I'd just be like, you breached our trust, and then sue them or whatever. I'd have fun with it, but it wouldn't really, like, make me, well, it would make me feel better in a way. But it wouldn't really get to the root of my issues, Like, I want to actually talk it out with someone that knows what they're doing. And it just so happens that, again, because I'm very open and sharing right away, that I was very forthright about my psychedelic experiences. And lucky me, the person that I'm seeing is someone who has a solid, both, I would say, like, from the scientific end of it professionally, but also I think probably in youth, like, a real, because we were really getting into it, and he basically told me in no uncertain terms that, like, with everything that I said and that he figured out, whatever, like that, it's like, I'm such a candidate for someone who actually has some bodies hidden under the floorboards, and the reason that never happened is probably because I got into psychedelics at, like, 2021 or something and did them a lot. He's like, you're really self-reflective.
Glad I was a part of that, then, because...
Yeah, you... Meredith was the first person that I ever tripped on anything with, let alone balls. And boy, did we. Like, the legend goes that...
Quite a few times.
Oh my God. The very first time we did mushrooms, which was the very first time I'd ever tripped. And I'd like been, I didn't drink until I was like legally able to drink at a bar. Like I never had, it's like I think somebody let me try a beer when I was like 8 and I spit it out because it was Budweiser. Ick. But I mean, no, because when you're a kid, it's not good.
I think I had Budweiser too, like Grandpa's beer.
Yeah. And then when I was like maybe in high school, my dad and grandpa were kind of like, you want a little sip of scotch? And I was like, this tastes like mouthwash. I mean, I have a taste for it now. I can just guzzle it like mouthwash because I can also drink that. But like, my alcoholism really taken over. No. So I like didn't like booze. And if that was part of their plan, it was a good one. So I'm like, I have zero interest in this. Like everyone that like drank booze and partied in high school is a fucking idiot. So I was like, not because of that, but just because most people are and most people drink in high school. So I was like, I don't like you. So I don't want to go do that. And I got lucky because a lot of them liked me. Like I experienced that early on, actually. Like far before music, I was like, Wheeler, you should come over here. And I'm like, I don't want to be by you. Like, well, you're funny. Come on. You'll break something probably. I'm like, I love that, but I want to do that on my own time. I'm going to go choose what I break. Like that's, but there was a time in my life, later on when I was like, I was doing a bunch of psychedelics and stuff. And, I should tell the story of our first trip. But yeah. So, which I've never really told on here or the internet. But, yeah, we were, I don't know how old you were, younger.
Your first trip. It wasn't my first trip.
You had taken something before?
Oh, yes. I was in Arizona. I took 7 hits of liquid acid.
That was before that. You're
yes,
right.
It was.
Was it your first time consuming mushrooms? I thought it was some first.
Maybe.
Because mushrooms which seem to be kind of plentiful now, were very legendary in the very early 2000s. Like, you'd be like, oh yeah, you ever done shrooms? Like, you couldn't find them. We were talking about this earlier where the early 2000s was like the death of an era of rave culture, which, came back and whatever. And the internet...
There was a drought of drugs. Even weed. Weed was terrible. It was...
Oh my God, it was ditch weed.
Like headache weed that was just...
The kind of weed I wish I could...
All stems and yeah, just icky.
I want to be able to buy a thing of like Oops All Stems from like a dispensary. Just be like, this will make you feel like you're smoking the worst weed you've ever had in 1997. I'm like, yes,
you could
I want that.
Grow weed like that anymore.
I think if you just smoke the stems from like the super mutant weed they have, it might kind of be like smoking 90s weed.
Yeah.
Like, Oops All Stems. That's what I want. Because they don't make weed classic, so I have to improvise. Can I just smoke part of the stick it came off of? Like, that would be great. Yeah, all right. Well, anyway, it was the first time I ever had any kind of psychedelic experience. I will say, barring the fact that, some people are like, I smoked weed a bunch before I ever got high. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking. I think it was because all those kids smoked cigarettes. So
you and I had a complete opposite.
No, I know. Most people, I tried and tried and tried. But I smoked, Graham Rafton had some weed from his, like, rich kid college friends that was, like, psychedelic. Like, I remember I smoked it the first time. I asked people in the room if I was awake or asleep.
It was Northern Lights.
Yeah, and Slipknot was on Conan O'Brien, and I actually thought they were really cool. Like, I was that high. Like, I kind of like them now in a way, but, back then I didn't care. But I thought the guy had 2 mouths coming out of his eye holes or something from his mask. I was like, what the fuck? Like, I was kind of tripping. And that was, like, the first time I smoked weed, and then I kind of got used to that idea, and then finally, like, our friend Derek was like, you want to try shrooms? And I'm like, I'll do anything. Yeah, I don't care.
Still, hands down, probably the best shroom experience.
It was wild. I was like a little...
Best, but definitely strongest.
I've never... Well, the famous thing was we were already high out of our minds smoking weed. That was number one thing to notice.
I forgot about that, yeah.
Yeah, which people don't realize that like supercharges mushrooms. Like if you're taking mushrooms and like you're like, oh, I know if I'm not tripping that hard, yeah, just take a few hits of weed. Like at least if you're someone that just inhales it all day long like a psychopath, then maybe it won't help that much. But if you're someone that just smokes a little weed on the nights and weekends and you're like, I'm gonna take a big hit in the middle of this mushroom trip on this like special event we're having, it'll come at you a little harder. At least I've discovered. And anyway, we were like kind of smoking weed, like stronger weed we started finding like a lot. And yeah, then Derek found shrooms from like Tracy and her friend, and who were like made out of LSD and drugs. Like this women were poltergeists. But I remember being like, he was like, we'll have to eat a lot of them. They don't look very good. And I was like,
God, yeah.
what if it turns out that you were wrong and they're like the best mushrooms you've ever had in your life? And he looked at me and he was just like, that'd be fine too. And I was like, okay.
I remember that.
And then because it's mushrooms, that's what happened. Because they make things happen like that, where it's like, oh, they probably were shitty. But then I was worried for a second, and he just did the thing where he's like, oh, that's fine. Because,
God, that's where Eat Some Potatoes came from.
Oh, yeah, we watched Willy Wonka, and then we watched a meteor shower. No, that wasn't that one. That was when we had done them again, I think.
Maybe, I don't know, I confused
No. The first trip, that was
the Denny's experience.
That was a good one, yeah.
The Denny's experience was the first.
We went to Denny's after eating mushrooms because we were like, all right, they're probably not that strong. And it turns out that they were like this weird kind that looks shitty, but they're like impossible to find and they're like really good. And apparently they had been dipped in like liquid LSD, which was like at the time impossible to find. And, you know, now I have to tell Jake, I'm not interested. I mean, maybe I'll try a little. But like, yeah, those made us like on the drive to Denny's. Our friend John Beveridge was driving his car was like,
yeah.
You know in like cartoons when they're drunk and the stoplights and things are all blurring all over them? He's like, that is my situation. It's like, well, we're almost there.
I got the vision of like I could see behind me and in front of me at the same time.
Yeah, that's tripping pretty hard. Like that is some fucking Grateful Dead experimental CIA acid mushroom trip shit. And we went into Denny's. We like ordered cherry Cokes or something. We got them. Then we just took them to the car and drove away. Like, and we didn't think any of that was weird.
Okay, here's the problem.
Right.
Because when I went in there, everyone was a fucking cop.
Me too.
They were all cops, and I freaked out. Like, and I was starting to freak out, not because of the cops, but I was just starting to freak out because I was like, "Oh my god,
it was overwhelming."
God,
yeah,
this is so much. And I went in the bathroom, and it was just, you know, that.
Yeah.
Just. Everything's kind of pulsating around.
Yeah, you were just taking a whiz in Mama's squeeze box.
I went outside because I was like, I can't handle this. They're all cops. And
what do you realize
like,
we both
ants crawling on the dashboard of our car that we were in, and it was like that's the only time I had like even doing acid or anything that I had like a real hallucinogenic experience of like, something that was completely not there.
Massive. That's why like when the jury is out, I'm like, were they really dipped in liquid LSD? And I'm like, I've had some visual mushroom experiences, but like that felt like I was in a weird hippie cartoon in another dimension. Like that was just wow. Also, I saw the cops too. When you trip hard enough, and I've told this story 1,000 times, and I forgot that you also saw it. Like, it was like Fear and Loathing. We walked in, they're like, ugh! Like, they all looked at us. Everyone was a cop. Everyone was a cop. There was not one cop in there.
No.
And I remember you were all worried, and I was just like, I thought it was funny that everyone was a cop because, like, I wasn't a druggy kid. Again, my first drink was when I was in a bar. Like, I just really was a weird, sober kid without making a big deal about it because we were actually cool back then.
Yeah.
But I was like a vandalism maniac kid, you know, like... So I was like slightly worried about the cops, but if I was ever just walking somewhere, the cops weren't a threat because I never had, you know, an eighth of weed in my pocket, man. Like I didn't have that experience. So like I didn't have cop paranoia, but yet there they all were. So I just thought it was funny because everyone was a cop and the walls were like the inside of a Predator ship. Like they were glowing green alien hieroglyphics just all over everything behind the cops. It was actually like, if I made a music video with like a bunch of like, identical cops with like glowing hieroglyphics behind them or whatever, people be like, you are a creative genius. And I'm like, I stole that from my own brain. I don't know.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so we didn't pay for anything. We just took our cherry Cokes and got back in the car. I don't know how that decision was made. I think we were like, it's taking too long to get food, or you were not having fun in the bathroom.
I was like, we
gotta go.
I'm out of here.
So it's
like, I can't.
But you know, normally when I do something like that, it's like on purpose 'cause it's funny. Like I'm taking this glass of cherry Coke into the car. But I was just like, okay, I just went outside holding it, just left.
We just left.
So, like, a buddy of theirs, who I didn't really know that well, but he worked the overnight shift at some hotel in Burnsville, who just, like, let us have a room to, in a different story, completely destroy and stuff and just lie to the cops. But, well, that's a different day. But, yeah, we just went in there, and, God, even, like, watching TV, I've never tripped this hard, where it's, like words would come out of the screen, and they'd be completely, like a video editing program, like when you like crank the blur all the way up so you can't see him. And each one, it was like an Elmer Fudd cartoon, and he lifted up a scroll. And I thought it was like part of the cartoon, but it was like they would just blur like solid as I read them. It was really weird. And the funny thing was I knew nothing about video editing software back then, but I could recreate that like right now upstairs in After Effects, where you like, as you see him, each word comes into focus. Like, but it looked like that. But I had no reference point for that. Like back then, it was like I knew what weird motion graphics effects would be in my daily job. Whatever. And then Elmer Fudd jumped around laughing.
For me, it was Conan had this extraordinarily long tie.
Yeah, Conan O'Brien.
And we all saw it.
Oh, yeah. He had a super long, weird tie, and he was smiling right at us. John Beverage saw someone standing behind the curtains, like, in the room.
That's true. Then you went to the bathroom, and I thought you were, like, crying or something.
Because you heard the faucet?
I don't know what
Yeah, I turned the faucet on. You're like, are you yelling or crying in there? I'm like, I don't know. I think I was trying to wash my hands. It wasn't easy.
And then I was really hungry, so we went to the gas station.
Yeah, we went to the PDQ that was by this particular hotel. The guy was mopping the floor, and when we went in there, I mean, it looked like this glowing Fear and Loathing like floor, and like he was like, "Don't walk."
I couldn't walk in there.
It was infinitely deep.
I made you and Derek go.
Yeah. And because the guy was like, "Don't walk on the floor," and we were like, "How do you what?" Like it was. I think he meant step on the mats, maybe, but we didn't understand. Anyway, we got pizza rolls. Then we went down to the lobby to use the microwave, which like I couldn't figure out for the life of me because like all the numbers are just moving around everywhere. I'm like, okay, they just turned it on and threw the box in there and hope for the best.
I ate them.
Well, yeah, you were like, these are gross, and I'm like, they're probably frozen.
Totinos. I don't like Totinos.
Yeah, but no, I think they were barely microwaved. Like, I think we just got them up to perhaps room temperature. Anyway, I didn't understand the microwave. And then I don't know how that night ended. Like, my memory ends, which for me is weird. 'Cause, I mean...
That's usually how acid works. Like, it's just like the trip ends, like, after you somehow fucking fall asleep and wake up the next day.
Yeah. But anyway... I've done enough strong psychedelics that the calm, because of all the factors of my mental health, the early onset of intellectualism and calm rationality that I've sort of had to adopt that was covering a temper of seething rage. The amount of psychedelics that I did, I used to worry that it had changed my personality. And now I realized it definitely did, and it's definitely way better than it was about to be. Like, way better. Like, there is such... a fucking Kyle wall hole punching like psychopath in me, and it's bad too because like I'm big and I'm smart. Like, not bragging, but I mean, if you're like, I hope that guy doesn't ever get a hold of guns or homemade explosives, it's like he has hundreds of each. He actually kind of knows what he's doing. Like, oh well, let's not set him off then. Like, it's that could have been me. And my guy kind of agreed. He's like, I don't know if I could say that, but everything you're telling me, it's like, yeah, you're probably better for having done what you've done. I don't tell it to everybody, but I know that we could talk about it. Like, I'm glad I found you. It's very good. So that leads us up to the point at hand. And if you want to maybe go over to my Facebook page, see, now we have a second computer here where we can look at things. But lately... I've been posing questions and things on my Facebook page to be like, hey, everybody, like, what do we feel about this? So I could talk about it on the podcast and tag you in the podcast and trick you into watching it, which I'm not hiding because a bunch of people have and no one has complained. And even if they did, it would have been funny. But I was asking people about their experiences with ketamine because, you know, I've done it as just a thing to do. And it was very good ketamine. It actually came from a modern, but a wonderfully eccentric, handsome, gay New York City club kid hairdresser guy who kind of looked like Freddie Mercury. It was ketamine from that dude. And he was a friend of Haley's. His name was Darby. He is dead now, but it was very sad. I never got to like actually meet him. He seemed like one in a few million though. But, you know, she inherited some of his, like, club kid ketamine, and Jake and I were doing it one day on a weekday in my freelancer life that might be about to change a bit, listening to Mechanical Animals from Marilyn Manson, which is about ketamine dissociation, at least several of the songs are. And it was a wild time. And Doug Stanhope's appraisal that if you're looking for something that's a little bit like a mixture of acid and Xanax that lasts for 30 minutes, ketamine is maybe the thing for you. But What I haven't gotten to try, like Meredith has, is the actual therapeutic, doctor-administered injections of it, which from the sounds of it are a much more intense experience than snort. I mean, I snorted a good amount of pretty good stuff, and it made me feel quite a way that I enjoyed. I couldn't really walk. Like, I toddled around my house a little bit, but
you should not walk when you do ketamine.
Well, I think I was going from
you do ketamine and you sit the fuck down is what you do.
No, I know. I was going from, like, my office chair over to the couch that I take my Don Draper naps on, because me and Jake were in there working on rap. And then we were doing ketamine, because that's how my life seems to work when a lot of people are, answering emails. But, yeah, I didn't do a lot of walking. But also with drugs, I always got to test it out. I'd never done it before. And Jake is, no, not even weirdly. Just some people weirdly. But some people might be like, he's on the list of people who I trust my life with. In that list, it's like my wife, you, a handful of people. Jake, I'm like, Jake will handle things if the shit hits the fan. He's good at that. And he's a homie for life. But, so I was like, I'm willing to try this thing with you that's kind of strong, and I have no idea what's going to happen. And I did, and it was very interesting, and I can see how it's kind of nice. And, of course, I wouldn't drink on it. But before I get to making fun of one of the worst Facebook audience poll responses that I've ever gotten, and you know who you are, all of you. Before I do that, I would like to hear a little bit about, I guess I made you look this up for no reason.
Not really. I mean...
Because I wanted to hear what you were going to say. Oh, yeah. One thing I wanted to say, though, just real quick. I want to read the post that I made for everyone listening to this. I go, does anyone have any experience with ketamine? Medicinally prescribed or just horsing around? 'Cause it's horse tranquilizer. Describe it in gory detail here, because we're going deep into the K-hole on the next episode. If you write podcast into a Facebook post, no one will see it. I figured that out a while ago. They don't... Oh, yeah. I have a new song. It's like one like. It's like... I have a new thing over at the thing I usually have. It's like, oh, is it a new song? It's like 1,000 likes. I'm like, okay, they throttle it. So you should be paying for this. Like in The Simpsons. Sorry, but there's profit to be had. But anyway, everyone just read the first line and went, oh, he wants to try it for the first time. My druggy ass, you fucking people. There's like someone being like, if you want to know more, just private message me. I'm like, I don't know. I've done it before. People are like, oh, whatever you do, don't drink on it. I'm like, well, I have. So shut up.
I don't want to be judgmental about your friends, but...
I do.
I was a little disappointed with the answer.
Because, very few of them are actually... no, I'm just kidding. All these people are good friends who I definitely have met in person and know who they are. Just kidding. No, I'm sorry. Meredith, continue.
Well, that was just basically it. I mean...
No, there needs to be a big but there. I don't want to be judgmental about your friends on here, but
you guys,
everyone has a big butt. Why don't you tell me about your big butt?
You failed. You didn't explain any of your experience. I mean, some people kind of got into, like...
Some people told a story. Some were rather tragic.
Yeah.
And I feel kind of bad. That's why I'm not going to get deep into naming names here, because...
Somebody said something about somebody using, like, a gram a day, which is insane. So
that's a deadly addiction.
To go on medicinally, it's for, if it's for pain or for, like, treatment or depression, which is what I use it for. It's under 100 milligrams. So, a gram.
How many milligrams is in a gram? Like a million? No, that doesn't make sense.
Is it? It's like 100 or 1,000. I don't know.
So 100. But you said 100 milligrams.
100 milligrams is
a gram.
K-hole.
100 milligrams is a gram.
Maybe. Oh, I just did that, didn't I? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, this isn't a science podcast where you're going to learn something.
I could look it up.
Like, we're just sitting here drinking gin. I should point that out. It's the silliest booze.
Well, whatever. Somebody can make fun of us or whatever, but anyway,
Well, I did make that whole podcast about close enough math that one time. I was like, why do we need, like, what is the importance of, 2 plus 2 could be maybe 4.5 sometimes. Just 'cause. Let it explore itself a little. Like, what, what's the...
Yeah.
But anyway, I wanted, so everybody on Facebook, guys, you didn't... okay, but maybe to be fair, everyone was assuming that I couldn't possibly have meant tell your drug stories on social media so your regular 9-to-5 job, combs through it and fires you. So maybe what I meant is I was looking for recommendations and I just didn't say it the right way. Because not everybody lives their life like I do. I mean, even Jake, Toxic, was the least to lose out of probably, there's no one that can really stop him from living how he lives, which is great. Was just kind of like, wow. But I mean, the thing is some of his stories have already been there for. But I just wanted him to retell. I guess maybe sometime we should just have him and Haley, come on the podcast and have a Rum Dumpster style round table about the matter.
Go for it. Yeah.
I think so.
There you go.
That would be fun. There is a long lost just me and Jake episode of Rum Dumpster that we ended up not being able to air for a few reasons. But if you think about what went on in that podcast, it was we just opted out of it. But funny thing is, you could probably do it now and everybody would be like, what are you even talking about? And it wouldn't matter. But yeah, it was a hot button topic. But yeah. So basically, Meredith is going to have to pick up the slack from all you people and, tell her therapeutic ketamine stories about erasing time and oneself.
Yeah, so, I mean, I've probably done about 20 infusions of ketamine ranging from 45 milligrams to 70 milligrams, and I've done one injection. So the infusions are much nicer of a ride. You just you start and then it just kind of goes for 40 minutes and you just kind of ride it out. The injection, however, it's like boom, hit by a truck, whew, just knocked on my ass. Not so great for me personally, but I've had 3 good experiences that I can point out with ketamine. I mean, all of them have been fairly pleasant. And I think I've texted you pretty much almost 80%, 90% of
I think so. Sometimes
my treatments. I always
send you weird abstract art from Midjourney and shit. So here's the thing I noticed
real quick with psychedelics and dissociatives. Ritual is really important.
Set and setting.
So I noticed with ketamine, a lot of times I'd want to sit in the same chair or be in the same room, talk to the same people before I do my before I am out.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a lot that people who are getting these infusions are kind of, feel the same way. Yeah.
Well, that works for all psychedelics. Well, okay, so you had 3 real good. Is there anything more specific about that? Did you travel through a series of underground caves in the center of your mind, or
my second experience was pretty great. So when you're on ketamine, I find the best way because it makes you super fucking dizzy. So it's best to have either watch a video of something really slow moving, or the clinic I go to offers this really cool light called the Galaxy Light, and it sort of looks like the Aurora Borealis, Northern Lights. So in one of the experiences I was having, I was feeling very euphoric, and just colors are very, meaningful, especially on ketamine, and I for some reason it clicked to me that life or death and birth happen at the exact same time, and it just so happens that the blue and white lights would kind of glide together and move together, and that's to me that represented fucking life or death and birth at the same time.
Yeah, there's I do want to make a couple of notes about that. One is, if you've ever done, DMT to the point where you break through to the fucking thing that some of us have seen, that idea that communication can be done through colors that you've never seen before in geometric patterns and things like that, and yet completely what it means, is something real weird that's inside all of us, and that's a little bit...
You associate color with meaning, and that comes out in ketamine and actually in near-death experiences.
Well, all of them too. It's like your brain releases basically DMT when you're being
Right.
born and when you die. Making them basically the same thing.
To me, so that's where the time thing kind of comes in. And I've completely, I wouldn't say I've hovered over my body, but I definitely checked out completely. Where all of a sudden my infusion was done, and I was like, "Oh shit, we're done."
Yeah.
So I forgot where I was going with that, but
Out of body experience, something, time, your brain releasing psychoactive chemicals out of your pineal gland at the moment of birth and death, making them possibly identical and making, the time in between, beyond, before and after, all in a relevant loop.
I guess that's what I
don't
was
know.
getting at, because I guess, so during ketamine, that's where I can't say that that's what happens, that we die and are born at the exact same time, but, they're both extreme traumas, so.
It's true. Death might actually be easier. We talked about this before, but H.R. Giger had the postulation that if we could remember our own births, we'd all be so traumatically damaged that there'd be like no therapist could unwind. Like we would just be like fucked up and weird because of the conscious nature of being a human being. So it's like there's a reason that our memories don't come online for like a couple of years. It's like a weird safety valve to keep. Because you would just be categorically insane experiencing that. But maybe the trauma is like when you die, you go into another birth. I mean, the thing is no one alive right now can remember not existing, and I don't think it's just because you can't really remember things all that well when you're a baby. Like, I don't think that's what that is. I think it's that you can't experience non-existence, which when you really say that over again, you're like, well, of course you can't. Like, when you die, it's just nothing forever. I'm like, yeah, time flies when you don't exist, though. I mean, you would just not exist your way right through the heat death of the universe that replaces this one in a blink of an eye, because it wouldn't matter. You're not there to count the goddamn days like you're in the Shawshank Redemption. Like, it doesn't make any kind of difference whatsoever. So it's like, you could not exist all the way through like 50 universes beginning and ending until time itself literally has no choice but to reset into the great loop that it's in, and then here you are again or something. Like, it's like those drugs expose, like they peel the wallpaper back to being like, oh, this is kind of how this really works with your consciousness, by the way.
With ketamine, it's almost not impossible, but it's really difficult for me to articulate my experience with it, and kind of what happened, because it also fucks with your memory. So
yeah.
During it, I'm like forgetting things I said to the nurse like 5 minutes prior.
I did experience that, by the way, sitting on the couch with Jake. I was just like, I you know how I fight so hard for control. I need to learn to not do that. And maybe with some
it's
therapy,
hard when you're if you're
yeah, but
yeah.
I was like, yeah, man. Well, I mean, Alexis and I have been like tripping harder than anyone ever has, like, once or twice. She's like, are you even feeling it? I'm like, the clouds are like this purple fractal pattern. Like, yeah, but I just kind of have this like, no, I'm just going to go over here. Like weird sort of procedural behavior autopilot that kind of kicks in when I'm tripping super hard.
A second notable story.
Ketamine fought me pretty hard, though. I will say that.
A second notable story I had would be the weird voices sometimes people hear during psychedelic experiences. I actually had that with ketamine. So I just kind of heard, as I was watching my video of, lights,
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of heard like weird, I can't say they were children's voices, but like they kind of, what I imagine to be children of the forest. So just those like...
Goblins, we call them.
But no! More like...
Those are goblins, children of the forest.
Just little, like, I don't know, the universe talking to me and telling me that, like, we've only just begun and we're just getting started and stuff like that. And
I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah, and I can't
I remember specifically I was reading your text while I was
what the voices sound like.
on the toilet.
Nice.
And I was like, oh yeah, I know what you mean though. And I
But
did.
you do. And
Yeah.
But I can only, like, they're not children, but they're not even like voices, they're not whispers. I can just
think
say
that
it sounds like, what you'd imagine like trees and mushrooms sound like.
I have two things with that. One, I think that those doses of ketamine, actually, you are, because I've had this experience, you're scratching the surface of that DMT world. Because, to say that ketamine's a dissociative, mushrooms are a psychedelic, acid's more of a this, DMT's more of a that, I'm like, no. When you depending on how you use it, alcohol is psychedelic. I mean, it's
altering.
Very, well, yeah, but you get to the bottom of things sometimes, at least if you use it the right way, which I do. But those sound like you're hearing, it's like Children of the Forest, but not, it's like that's the Clockwork Elves that everyone sees when they're on DMT. Like, I guarantee it. You're describing very much that. Also, one time when me and Alexis and some of our old roommates were doing this Lord of the Rings mushrooms adventure, like we had our roommate
about that.
hide this ring that I randomly found in a part of Bloomington where we had to walk down where the power lines go down that strip of park for like miles all the way till it terminates at a river. And he gave us like clues. And yeah, we took mushrooms and we started, and just like they kicked in while we were trying to figure it out. It was actually a pretty fun tripping idea, except for it did bug my stomach a little because like we're walking around as. I've noticed that if I just like lay down and digest them, and then when my brain starts being like, ooh, like you're like, all right, time to get up. That helps. But regardless, later we got back to the house. We had a nice little, it was like a shitty rental, but the yard had a lot of like cool like trees and flowers kind of off into the back corner. You could go hide around or whatever. We called it Backyard Glenn, and he was a real pervert. It's like, my name's Backyard Glenn. Is it okay to be a prevert? Yeah. But anyway, Alexis was like laying on the ground, and I was kind of worried about her, but it turns out that like the flowers and mushrooms and things were like telling her their secrets, and she was like happy tears crying like into the soil. Like she was having a real psychedelic time out there. Then we all sat out there, and then Ben's girlfriend brought us Taco Bell. Also, when we talked to her, we used the Bluetooth speaker that we had like connected to somebody's phone. And I realized that you could talk into the phone and hear from the speaker at the same time. So using the Facebook phone messenger, whatever thing that it is, I was like using it like an old timey, like, hello, is this Klondike 425? And I was like, it works just like it. The future is like the past. And we were on mushrooms. And I think I called Ben Stick Monkey. And then he was like, do you think that's how old hippies got their name? Because you just called me Tree Monkey. It's like, no, I called you Stick Monkey. And it's like, oh yeah, no one's called that. But he had a beautiful thought that I ruined. And that was fun. But
I have one final story, which is weird.
One more final. I'd say Stephen King. I meant Jerry Springer.
It's a weird one.
What's the difference? Jerry Springer's final thought, but I was like, Stephen King's final. No, who's that guy? Stephen King never had a trashy talk show.
No, not yet. Anyway.
He'll be dead soon.
Well, so, this kind of changed my experience with ketamine. I started to have more of like a more negative thoughts during my sessions, which whatever. But so I was watching a video on my phone during my session, like I normally do sometimes, and I had the realization that your phone is made of plastic.
Yeah.
You're made of plastic, and then I kind of like just it was sort of out of body, and I'm like, the world is made of plastic.
It is now.
But it was like, but think of like what fucking music video was that where?
Sledgehammer.
No. Weird Al made a parody in fucking UHF.
Oh, Beverly Hillbillies.
Yes, so when they're coming, it's either when he's like coming out of the TV or going into the TV. Dire Straits.
Dire Straits is like other songs are really great too, but they're kind of way different. Like that Sultans of Swing or whatever.
Yeah.
That's all the Sultans of Swing. I don't know. Alexis said her dad showed her a bunch of Dire Straits when she was young, and I'm like, I never really heard their deep cuts. These are fucking great. Okay, anyway.
My point was of like if you're trying to like picture what I mean by like I felt like literally the universe was plastic. It's that video.
The real Dire Straits one or the Weird Al Beverly Hillbillies?
Let's do the Weird Al one because that's the one I could think of. Where he's pulled into the TV and then it's just like your entire world is just that. So, don't know what the fuck that means. But it just was like, my phone is plastic and I'm plastic. I'm not actually real.
I think it means that Weird Al. You remember in Dogma when like God was like a guy on life support or whatever, and he came back as Alanis Morissette? In real life, it would have been Weird Al. Okay. I think he's actually like the avatar of our Lord on Earth.
Well, I feel much better.
Isn't that comforting? Yeah.
Glad I'm not plastic.
That too. Weird Al really showed us the way. Yeah.
You want to talk to any of these people?
No.
Okay.
I give up. I'm going to tag everyone in it just so they end up disappointed at the end. It's like, you didn't even talk shit. You just kind of blanket statement where, like, you're all a bunch of worthless doofuses, and I didn't even, you listened to a whole podcast to hear your name. But, you know what's fun? Just like a resume, I'm going to lie about it and be like, I mentioned you, because I've been tagging everybody and everything, and they're going to be disappointed. But you know what? Either the journey will be fun enough where they'll come back, or they won't. Who cares?
Here's the thing. I think we should talk about ketamine again. And maybe you guys, here's your... Yeah, whoever, whatever.
Okay.
However, maybe this time, guys, like, actually try and tell us what happened.
Okay, you're presuming a lot of, like, attentive listenership by 56 minutes into this.
If one person hears this and, like, comments or whatever, great.
Whatever. Though, I think the fun part has been, like, okay, let me back this up a little. I think that, like, we don't necessarily have to heavily focus on ketamine again, but, we could probably talk old hallucinogenic drug stories for multiple episodes. And it would be funny because there's just so many. There's so many where, like, you were both there. There's ones you have where I wasn't there.
I honestly...
There's ones I have that are fucking from...
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to talk ketamine, I can only really talk, like, serious about it because I'm using it for, medicinal. So it's hard to be, like, fun and jokey about it, but...
Well, no, and I mean, it's easy for me to be fun and joke because, you know what we should do? Because of the timing? Oh, shit. Our next episode should be the 9/11 special.
Oh, God.
Because it's going to come out and I can ask people where they were on 9/11, like what 9/11 means to them, how exciting it is that all the same people that when 9/11 happened, they were like, please spy on me. That's fine, George W. Bush. Just do whatever you want. Take my freedoms, whatever. And then COVID happened, and they're like, I want a haircut. How dare you? Like, and it's hypocritical fat asses that I would love to.
You could definitely do that, and I will be here for it. I will be your laugh track. What am I
going to give away? The next minute and a half. Like, I'll preface it. You should listen to the next episode. I can talk about how I was 21.
Well, you're going to tell where you were.
But I was on September 6th, 2001, I turned 21, and it was time to party. And then 4 days later, the fucking party was over.
The world ended.
Like, everybody sucked so much after that. Like, everyone was like, just worshiping George W. Bush. And you're like, please spy on us as long as it keeps the terrorists from bombing this Walmart and ass cancer, Nebraska, like where I live, like, or whatever. Like, everyone turned into such an idiot. People forget. Yeah, you know what? That is going to be the next episode because everyone's an idiot lately. I'm like, no. There just wasn't really, there wasn't even MySpace when September 11th happened. So it's like every, fat doofus that's just kind of like...
We had AOL chat. I mean, I know we had AIM at that time.
We barely... But here's the thing. Grandpa didn't have that. Like, it wasn't like these people who would, easily go, this trust fund billionaire that doesn't pay his real estate employees in New York that's been a joke forever is going to save us from, the underground pedophile network started by the Clintons. All that fucking shit where they just, they think people from Saturn are control... we didn't... There would be, little tiny message boards with that, and just, weird nerds that we were friends with would be like, hey, look at this. And, Bernard and Brian and Joel would be like, Jesus Christ, look at these stupid people on this thing. And most people were too stupid to get on the internet because it used to be hard to get on. And then, like, could you imagine if 9/11 happened, like around when COVID did?
God.
Like, COVID would have not seemed like a political football at all in comparison. Like, if we got attacked, it doesn't even feel real anymore, because it's like, if we got attacked now, that would actually completely destroy this country. Like, I really think if someone pulled that again, or maybe in an alternate timeline where they didn't, that, like, let's say COVID happened in 2001 and we kind of got over it really quick because there wasn't enough to do. So it's like, fine, just go back out. Fuck the nursing homes, whatever. Go to work. Like, we can't, there's no internet. There's nothing to do. Like, what are you going to play Snake on your phone for like 4 months?
Controlled it a little bit better, because all people would have is like really the news, so.
Yeah, there would have been like, you couldn't form your own dumbass Facebook opinions, and also it would have been like, oh yeah, like almost nobody dies from it, so it's like, cool, we would have just kind of gotten back to it after a while and been like, yeah, all right, that was kind of a bummer, but it wasn't Ebola, so good. But, yeah, and then you trade that, and then September 11th happened in 2020. That would have been it. That would have been it for us. And then possibly the ripples of it being it for... I love how, like, other countries always try to pull the plug on this one, and they're like, and then they'll just quietly go away. We'll go to jail, peacefully, quietly, we'll enjoy it. It's like, that's like, just like, telling a meth head that he's grounded. Like, so now we're done? Or getting rid of the police entirely and just being like, and then everyone needs to work on making it so that, you know, the environment isn't such that people even need to deal drugs. There needs to be more opportunities. It's like, that person's going to be cut into pieces by the local militias forming the power vacuum. It's like, no one thinks ahead to what happens when you go, all right, that's done. So like Russia and China are like, wow, we fucked America up. They're just a bunch of warring individual factions now. It's like, do you realize what that will eventually cause? Like, the end of it just be like, remember the Stand when the trash can man just found nuclear bombs in Los Angeles? Like, hey, look what I got. And yeah, it's like, oh, don't play around with those. Oops. Yeah, no, that's... You don't want to do that with this country. We're too broken and insane to be like, hey, we caused their entire democracy to crumble, and then, like, why is our country on fire now? I'm like, that's 9/11 in 2020, baby. Well, we'll get to that, and I'll talk about how fun my 42nd birthday was next time, everybody.
The Reverend John Wheeler podcast takes zero responsibility for the words, actions, or ideas of its host, guests, or listeners. Though the people on the screen may at times be speaking directly to you and may occasionally give you direct calls to action, neither Reverend John nor the Alchemical Cocktail Lounge are under any moral or legal obligation to answer for the potentially disastrous repercussions that may arise if you are stupid enough to actually follow the orders of a raving lunatic. Think for yourself and do whatever you want, because you're on your own. If anyone ever tries to sue this podcast, black SUVs will converge on your location in the darkness of night and you will never be seen again. Remember to like and subscribe.